Well, welcome everyone to another episode of Explore Grant County. I do want to thank today's sponsor, Love's Way Village, for allowing us to do this interview with the Superintendent of Grant County Schools, Mitch Webster. Mitch, how are you doing today?
Doing good, JR.
So I'm really excited. This is going to become a monthly thing.
You and I talked, and I would like for that to be the case. I just think it's another avenue where I can try to get factual information out, answer questions that you have or the community has given to you for me to address, and I just look forward to it. We've done this in the past, not on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
But I think each time it's been beneficial.
I think this is our third one actually together, isn't it?
I think so. So yeah. I've given you some topics that I'm hearing about. You've got some that you are hearing about, and I'm getting the word out to our staff and some of the committees that I have, that if they have anything they would ever like for me to bring to these podcasts, to let me know. So
yeah, that'll be perfect. Also, we offer our listeners, they can go to Explore Grant County on Facebook, and you can private message us your questions. And
Absolutely.
We had some questions.
Very good.
So that works. So let's start with an update, because I think one of our first podcasts, first or second, was about the levy.
Absolutely.
And now we're almost 2 years into the levy.
Yes, we are.
How's the spending coming along and projects and things like that?
The projects are coming along very well. Some projects are obvious. Sidewalks at Petersburg High School. Some are not quite as obvious. The chiller at the high school is not something you see in broad daylight, but without that being put in place over the summer, there wouldn't have been air conditioning at Petersburg High School to start the school year, and we were on a pretty tight timeline for that. But to answer your question about the spending, I have asked, and it's been done, every principal, well, first of all, Tony Oates put together a very user-friendly to read levy expenditure update. He sent it out to all the principals. They've put it on their school web pages. And then we've also put it on, very easy to find, on our county webpage. Okay. And you can go through there item by item, see exactly what the project was and the dollar amount that was spent from the levy call.
Okay, that's good. So we were up at Union last night for the Board of Education meeting, and I think they were giving some praise about some of the levy money that was spent up there. And, well, I think, did they get the heating and air conditioning?
Absolutely. They have the system to air conditioning. And you would have thought, years ago, it didn't seem like you needed air conditioning on the mountaintop. But the last 10, 12 years, the end of school and the beginning of school is very hot, even on the mountaintop. And we now have central air in that school. It's actually done through where you dig, I forget how many feet deep we went, and use the geothermal to circulate the groundwater to heat and cool.
Oh, wow.
So it's very cost effective once we get the initial expense paid off, which we can do through the levy funds. It's much cheaper to operate that school. So that's one thing. If you noticed last night, the parking lots were all paved.
Yes.
That was through levy funds. Entire school's been painted, and I could go on and on with other things. But a lot of the things are obvious. You can see them. Some are a little bit behind the scenes, but you can see everything on those web pages where we've spent the money.
I think they were very appreciative, at least what I heard from the air conditioning.
They are, and I tell you, and you were there last night, and I've said this, and I mean this sincerely, and I enjoy going out to all of our schools, but I really enjoy. I make it a point to go to Union once a week, and because I think sometimes it's easy for them to feel separated because they're on the mountaintop, and they are just as much as part of Grant County as the rest of us.
It's a haul up there.
It is.
You don't realize how much it is.
It's a good 35, 40-minute drive to the mountaintop, but good people up there. And Lori Nesserota's taken over as principal, and I just feel so good about the way she's moving that school forward.
Yeah, we like Lori a lot. It was great getting to chat with her last night. So what we'll focus on, since you said about 30 to 45-minute trip, I want to dovetail this into the green bus, which we're going with an electric bus. We get to test one out here coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Or was it next Thursday or something?
This coming Monday. For anybody that would like to be there, there'll be a press conference at the bus garage at 10 o'clock. I think at 9 o'clock they come to go over some things with the fire department and things of that nature. And then at 10 o'clock there's a press conference. And this is just an opportunity to test drive one. It's certainly no commitment to purchase one or anything of that nature. However, there are some really neat things about this. The buses, and I think you may have heard me say this last night, they are all made in West Virginia. So it's a win when you purchase these buses for the West Virginia economy to begin with, number one. Number two, they are emission free. So as far as any kind of pollutant that our kids will be around waiting at bus stops or evenings and so forth, boarding. They're emission free. And number 3, you still have to plug these into the grid, and the grid is powered by clean coal, which is produced in West Virginia. So it's a win-win-win from that standpoint, if we can get a price that we can afford.
Yeah, which he could not tell the price, but with what the cost of the batteries are, I was rough estimate $250,000.
Could be. It could be now.
And don't quote us on that, but I was just, the battery packs alone were $300,000.
Absolutely. Now, what they told us at another meeting that I was at, there was all kinds of federal incentive money that comes along with this that would try to balance the scale a little bit. Also, it's my understanding that they would come in, if you would ever go to, any county would ever go to utilizing these types of buses, they would come in and do all of the plugins for you, do all the hookups and all the infrastructure.
Which was a lot of questions that people had last night, because you got to think about plugins, and then you got to think about, well, how long is the trip? How long does the bus get charged? So it'll be very interesting to see, because we get it for like 6 weeks, which will be the beginning of winter, kind of, that we hit it, what it is like traveling up to Union.
Right.
Up, because obviously, I guess when you're traveling the mountain, you're going to be pulling more electric too, because you're pulling some weight.
You are, but one thing that nobody asked him last night that was explained to me, when you're going downhill, the batteries are charging.
Batteries are charging, yes.
So it kind of offsets itself. But they felt Grant County was a really good testing ground.
We're spread out.
We are spread out. And that mountain, every day we're going to run it and just see what it can do.
Yeah, so Monday, what time did you say again?
10 o'clock.
Monday, 10 o'clock at the bus garage, down by the football field.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can stop in and see the bus. Now, we didn't purchase it.
No.
Yeah, we get this for 6 weeks to test drive the electric bus. And I think it would be cool to even just get a ride on, just to see. That would be.
Call me and I'll try to set you up.
Okay, that'd be great.
Be glad to do that for you.
We can go live and do a little.
That'd be great.
That'd be neat.
You let me know.
So I've also been hearing that, for whatever reason, we're still struggling with teacher and substitute shortages. What can we do?
Yeah, and Jay, I don't know. And I will say this: Avery Anderson, our personnel director, has utilized every method possible. We have things like Grow Your Own program, which that's not an immediate fix. But there are other alternative certification ways to become certified and so forth that have allowed us to put people in the positions, or we would really be in trouble, because they're just the simple thing is there aren't nearly as many kids going into the education field as there used to be. I don't know if I've shared this with you or not, but when I applied in Grant County 40 years ago, there were 14 people applied for the position I applied for. Third grade position at Dorcas Elementary School, 14 people applied. Okay, now we're lucky to get 1 or 2 for an elementary position, much less a really difficult position like maybe a chemistry, math, or science teacher.
So a question, and maybe you have the data or maybe you don't. Is that a Grant County issue now, or is that a statewide issue where we just can't get teachers statewide?
Actually, it's a national problem. And we are, I think, probably better off than most. Just talking to other superintendents, it's a real struggle. And speaking of Lori, as soon as she was hired at a union, she just hit the ground running, trying to find people that not necessarily had teaching degrees, but had college degrees and could get certified. And that's the route we're going right now. And those folks have turned out to be very energetic, very enthusiastic, very trainable. And we don't just have them at Union, we have them in other schools too. And that's the route I think that you'll see us going more and more.
So with that, though, what can they actually teach? They can't, obviously, I guess, teach specialized fields.
They can if they take the praxis test and pass it.
Oh, okay. So someone who didn't go to school for chemistry, let's say, they could become a chemistry teacher.
They could.
Does that...
Not overnight.
Yeah.
Not overnight.
Does that sound... I mean, I don't want to say that person's not a good teacher, but for our education of our kids, is that the ideal? Obviously, it's not ideal, but...
In an ideal world, obviously a person would go to a 4-year college with an emphasis strictly on education and come out with the pedagogy and the instructional skills and all those kinds of things. We're in a situation now where if we can hire good people, it then becomes upon us to help train them and develop them. And if they're willing to learn, we can do that. We can do that rather quickly.
Because that would kind of almost tie into a little bit of what we were talking about with COVID kind of lowering all the test scores across the nation.
Absolutely.
Especially in math, which was hit the hardest.
Right.
What does that, I mean, does that further set us behind? I mean, is this a national push that needs to be done where we need to push people to go into teaching?
Oh, without a doubt. I think there needs to be tuition waivers, cost of living adjustments for people going into the teaching field and moving into areas where the cost of living is extremely high. There are a lot of things that can be done that I think that are not being done right now. But it will become a national crisis if it's not addressed.
Okay, so let's go into, since we were talking about kids struggling because of COVID, I did learn last night that Union, the school in Union, they were rated lowest in the state. And they are under, what is the term again? You know,
CSI, it's Comprehensive Strategies Instruction, I believe, is the title that's given to it. And I'll talk about that, but I want to go back up one real quick thing that I wanted to say about the substitute shortage.
Okay.
If there are folks out there that are listeners and they have a college degree, and they think they would be interested in helping us substitute, call Mr. Anderson at the board office. Through alternative certification methods, we can get them certified and available to help come substitute in our buildings. Because what we're running into every day right now are teachers that give up their planning to go cover a class because we couldn't get a substitute. So I just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
Anybody would be interested in helping us out, give a call, and we'll do everything we can to get you certified.
Yeah, I know my mom is a substitute for Hardy County schools, and it's every day. Every day.
And same way, but not just teachers, as you said, anything, aides, custodians. We need them. Right.
Yeah. Okay, so back to Union and CSI, not to be confused with CIS.
Right, not community schools.
CSI is a state program that they come in to help.
Absolutely. It's when your student achievement level is at a point where they feel you're going to benefit from state intervention. And that's where we are right now with the test scores that we had in Union. Now, again, test scores are relatively low across the state. Union's certainly not the only school that this has happened to. I want to, and not to make excuses for Union, but they have had large turnovers of teachers. You heard them mention that last night. Plus, if you teach history at Union, for example, you teach 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. You have 5 preps. It's not like if you're at a big high school where you just teach West Virginia history all day and only prep for that one. So it's very difficult to prepare for all the different classes that they teach. Combine that with the huge turnover that we have. And then COVID, it was just kind of a perfect storm for this to possibly happen. The good news is, JR, and I was up there Monday evening for their leadership meeting, they are taking ownership. They are owning this, and they are looking for ways to. There are 2 things you can do when something like this happens. You can blame external factors. We can say COVID all we want. That's an external factor. Or we can look internally. We can take the internal look and say, what can we do?
Yeah.
Let's take a little ownership and see, regardless of all these external factors, what can we do? And that's what they're doing at Union.
And I think bringing Lori in as the principal will really help.
Absolutely.
I mean, because she seemed like she was, okay, let's look at this as a positive and let's bring it up. And I think she'd already said some of the scores were already coming up.
Right.
But going over some of the scores where, and they also talked about like 8 students in a class,
right.
In a grade.
Right.
And where all 8 tested beneath.
Right.
So they have a lot of work, but they're going to get the help that they need. And I know people hate to talk about this, and I don't even know if it'll work, but when you're saying about the teacher shortage and having a hard time with the turnover up there, at some point in time, does consolidation ever get talked about? Because I was shocked to know that they had 8 people, because you think, 8 people in the class. No, 8 people in the whole 3rd grade or whatever it was.
Right. Right now, I think if you looked at the slides that showed the student population, it's remained fairly steady over the last 5 years. We can certainly financially operate that school if it stays within the area where it is now, 186. We'd like to be up over 200, but if we can keep it where it's at, we're fine. I have no way to envision the future, what the future may hold. There may be something that causes an influx of people to the mountaintop.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know. So I can't even say that, but it would simply come down to, as much as I spent my first 20 years at Dorcas, absolutely loved that community and that school, but Dorcas is now closed. Dorcas had dropped from 130 students when I first started there to like 60 some. So that is beyond anybody's control when that happens. Just from an economies of scale, you can no longer afford to keep that school open. Yeah. So we're nowhere near that.
No, I was just thinking, when you're having trouble with getting teachers, and like you said, a teacher that has to do 5 preps because he has 5 different grades,
right?
Is that attainable always in the future? But
right.
Like you said, you don't know what
I think it will always be attainable in pre-K all the way through 8th grade at Union. Where I get a little concerned, or a lot concerned sometimes, is are we offering the same things to our high school students there that they can get at, for example, at Petersburg, like your AP courses or your calculus and things like that. And we have some creative ways that we're delivering that to them, but still, that is a concern of mine.
Okay. Now, this is something that you wanted to talk about, and it has to deal with policies. Mm-hmm. And so I did a lot of homework last night. I called a whole bunch of legislatures, school boards. I really, we're viewing this as a news organization now. So I was really doing my homework late last night, and I'm grateful to everyone who answered my phone at 10:30 at night.
Good for you.
So you want to talk a little bit about federal, state, and local policy and kind of what trumps what and how that goes. So I'll let you kind of take it over, and then I'll interject.
Well, I think there's sometimes a misconception that that county school boards can just enact or not enact any policy that they want to, and we the boards, nor do I, have that kind of authority. We are first and foremost guided by federal policy. The state is. Then the state integrates that into state policy, and then that trickles down to the county. And the county we're required. We take an oath to follow all federal, state statutes, policies, and codes. We're just, that's an obligation of law. I'll give you a good example. When Quarter H runs through Grant County, that's a U.S. highway. So the federal government sets the speed limit for that highway. In Grant County, we can't say, well, when it comes through Grant County, we're going to make it 75 mile an hour. I wish it was, and I would argue that if I got pulled over. But our state or local officials don't have the authority to change the speed limit on a U.S. federal highway any more than I can change, or our board can change what's said in a federal or state policy. Now, we can disagree with it, and we can talk to our legislatures, and we can go in front of the state board and do things to try to get those policies changed. But we are bound by law to follow them. Now, last night you heard us at the board meeting in our second reading. We had a county policy that we updated. That was our policy on communicable diseases. And it was felt by the health department and our health nurses in the schools. They had communicated to me that they felt we needed to add that to our county policy on add bed bugs to the county policy. That's a county policy. That's just one example of many things the counties can do, and those kind of policies are different throughout the state. But some, like I've talked to other superintendents, it just basically says we'll follow state policy, because if it's a state policy or federal policy, we're bound by law to follow it. Now, if it becomes so extreme that we think, you know what, we just can't do that in Grant County, then there are places where I think I would say to the board, we can draw the line here. Let the chips fall where they may. Let our attorney argue it in court if we get called on it, and let's see what happens. So
that does bring me to calling last night. So I made my calls, and the one thing that they wanted me to get across is that policy is different from law.
Absolutely. So
policy is not law. Mm-hmm. And what they wanted me to say is that policy, there's some wiggle room there on what actually has to be followed, because it's not law, it's policy. And so then I got in touch with some of the other school boards, and some of the school boards absolutely said they will not be following this new policy that's being passed down by the state, the one that we've tabled until July of next year. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Does our school board have that option to say, we're not following this policy, and then, like you said, see where the chips, because I said, well, what happens if they don't follow a policy? And, not a single person could answer that.
Sure.
What was was there a punishment? Was there not a punishment?
Right. Well, let me give you an example. What happens in the private sector when an employee comes to work every day and just refuses to follow company policy? What's going to happen to that employee?
More than likely get fired.
Absolutely. So there are some repercussions for not following policy. Even though it's not law, there are repercussions for not following policy. I passed out a handout to our board members last night showing that if we would elect not to follow policy, and this was discussed at a training that I was just at, that county board members could lose some of their authority, and that is happening right now in this state in some counties. It happened here several years ago when we had something called state takeover. So that's one thing that very easily could happen if one would elect to just simply not follow policy. Okay. Now, what I try to do is I work very closely, and we have a very good attorney that represents us, and he will tell me on some things where we have some wiggle room, and then he'll tell me on others where I'm gonna tell you what, if you elect not to follow that policy, I can't help you if we go to court. He flat out tells me that. So that's what you have to consider. Is there some wiggle room in this one where we can maybe say we're not going to do it, and if there is, we can try it and see what happens. And if he tells me that, that's what we'll do. But anytime that you don't listen to your legal counsel, I think you're going down a road that's probably a little bit dangerous.
Which brings us to Amendment 4, and whether you're for or against it, that amendment is very, very important, for or against, because that deals with, does the State Board of Education have complete authority, or if you vote for the Amendment 4 revision, it gives the legislature the chance to say, we don't like that, you have to take that out, or even give suggestions back. And of course, I interviewed Jonathan Adler and John Paul Hott and Randy Smith on Amendment 4.
Right.
And, whether you're for or against, that's kind of a breakdown, because I even had some people ask last night, hey, what is this Amendment 4 we keep hearing about? I'm like, well, go look back at the podcast. But so that Amendment 4 is important either way. If we vote against it, it's going to stay with the Board of Education.
Absolutely.
And if we vote for it, it's going to go to the legislature to vote on what the state board puts into effect, whether it would go into effect.
Exactly.
Which I still don't know if that ratifies it as law then, or if that's still a policy.
Well, that's a very good question. Maybe I'll try to talk to our attorney, and next time we do a podcast, we'll talk about the difference between policy and law.
Yeah.
Because there is a difference. That is correct. But anyway, you wanted my opinion on.
Sometimes you can fight policies. You can't fight laws.
That's right. The laws seldomly change. That's correct. But policies do. Policies get updated. They get amended, and so on. Were you asking me my opinion on it?
Go ahead.
I would never, ever try to tell someone how to vote. I think that's a personal decision. And in Amendment 4, I have some opinions both ways on it. And first of all, I want to say Kirk last night, Kirk Wilson, spoke at the board meeting, I thought, very well, and gave some excellent reasons why he would recommend others to vote for Amendment 4. And I thought well-spoken, brought up some very good points. Here's my take on what I like about it, what I don't like about it. And I'll start off with what I don't like about Amendment 4. Right now, school policy in West Virginia is written by our state board with help from the West Virginia Department of Education. Okay, those are folks that are appointed by the governor every 9 years, so that hopefully they succeed different governors, so that it doesn't become too political, because they've been appointed by different governors over the years because they're there for 9 years. Those folks typically have a background either as a former superintendent, a principal, a board member, or a business person who was actively involved in the education system in their community, whatever. They have that background, that knowledge, and they don't have any political influence on them to make their decisions. So they are separate. It's keeping the educational system separate from the political system, which I favor. Then when they develop policy, it goes out to public comment, and the public seldomly probably even looks at them, but they have that ability to look at them and make comments, and then those comments come back, and then they can rewrite that policy a little bit or whatever, refine it before they put it out for final reading and so forth. So that's the way it works right now. That's the way it's designed that way. I like a lot about that, as I just mentioned, that it's separate from the political arena. Now, what I do like about and I thought Kirk spoke about this last night, our elected officials, we can go directly to them if they now have control or final say, I should say, over these policies, and get in their ear and talk to them about what we do or don't like.
And those that don't like it can vote them out.
Exactly. Exactly.
And see, that's the point, if we're just giving opinions, that's the point that I don't like about the way it is now, is because those people can't be voted out.
Absolutely.
They're appointed by, like you said, it could different governors that can be voted out, but they're there for 9 years.
Right.
And you did say about it not being political. I do have to push back on that a little, because I feel some of these new policies are overtly political with the way we have to not include, but looking for a word of bow to the whims of kids who aren't totally grown yet. I mean,
Well, when I say in a perfect world, it's not political. They're supposed to be. Now, obviously, since they are appointed by an elected official, the governor, already it's got some political connotations to it. So, but in a perfect world, it would not be. Kind of like the Supreme Court. Those guys are there for life for a reason, so that they can separate their political views from their interpretation.
But how has that not become political?
Yeah, it becomes political. But again, our founding fathers in a perfect world gave them a lifetime appointment so they would know their job was to interpret the Constitution, not try to influence law by their own political beliefs.
Yeah.
So in a perfect world, that's the way the state board would work. Okay. The only other issue that I have with Amendment 4, and I guess there would be some way to have this rectified, the state board is developing policy year round. Okay. Our elected officials serve 60 days. So what will they do in, say, right now, a policy?
Yeah. You have to wait until they're in session, basically.
And we can't wait.
They can always call a special session if it's...
They can, but I'm telling you, you're going to be talking about a special session every other week if you're not careful to look at these policies and put them back out for review and so forth. So I don't know if those details have been worked out yet, but with Amendment 4, it has some positives, some negatives. I can live with it either way. I think you just need to weigh both sides and determine what you think best fits for you.
Okay, so now this is going to some of my questions that people have asked me. There's been a lot of confusion over getting papers, or maybe the parents haven't even got the papers, where they're enrolled into a program. I don't even know if I want to say enrolled into a program, but something's happening, and if the parents don't sign the paper, the child is automatically brought in. It was that way with CIS. It was that way with the where was the right here, the suicide prevention thing that we just had. Was it last week or the week before?
Probably about 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago. If they didn't sign the paper, the kids were automatically in that. So my question is, you've told me why they do opt out, because of not many people sending them in, and you want people to have the program, which sounds good. So I'm pushing back, because why don't we do that with field trips then? They have to sign the paper to go.
They do.
If you want everyone to go on field trips, send an opt-out paper.
Sure. Field trips are extracurricular.
To me, this is extra. It's extra. This is not education.
No, we are bound by, again, policy to offer suicide prevention, and how we offer suicide prevention is strictly up to the county. Some counties have someone come into each classroom and go from classroom to classroom. We've done that many times. Sometimes they bring in speakers. In this particular case, when I say we, our county social workers and school county psychologists vetted the background of this extremely well. Talked to schools across the state and so forth, and they highly recommended this. And I'm going to tell you something. There was just a suicide in a neighboring county. If we would have a suicide in this county, and I as a superintendent didn't do everything I could to give kids every opportunity to know there are places and ways they can reach out if they have these feelings that they're probably not going to tell their parents about. Parents think they're going to tell them, their kids are going to tell them everything. They're not. So it would be negligent on our part, if we didn't provide these things. This is something we're required to do. This is the way we did it, and a field trip is part of our curriculum. A field trip is extracurricular.
Okay.
So
Well, yeah, and so the suicide, let's say that is the CIS. That's extracurricular to me. That's not required.
Right, and it has a parent permission. It's not an opt-out. It's a parent permission.
It was.
And that's changed.
It was an opt-out.
That's not anymore, though.
Okay.
So that's been taken care of.
Okay. Yeah. So is there a way? And like you said, we always talk about perfect worlds. We know kids. Sometimes they bring stuff home. Sometimes they don't. You don't know what gets in the bottom of their book bag by the end of a semester.
Well, and here's what I would tell you.
How do we do it in a perfect world?
What we do, if we're getting ready to have this assembly, and a kid comes up to the counselor or their teacher and says, I just really don't want to go to this. I didn't get an opt-out form, but I really just don't want to go to this. They don't have to go. They can go to the library and read a book or something. We'll have a place for them.
But to let the parents know, I know we have the phone line. Can we call about this stuff so they get the phone line at least? And then, because, everyone knows to listen to that for the day off or something like that, something that they're really excited about.
I mean, I think those are things we can do. Like I said, I've just at a conference this week, and I talked to several of my superintendent friends there and asked them. None that I talked to did anything. They don't send opt-out forms, parent permission forms. This is part of their curriculum. They just do it. Parents understand it. So in my mind, we went above and beyond to let parents know this is what we're doing. If you'd like to opt out for whatever reason, feel free to do that. But if you would have come, and I would have been glad to invite you to listen to this assembly. It was just purely informational for kids. There's like a hotline number, just like a 911 number. If you know any friend that's ever mentioned to you that they have feelings of suicide, or if they have those feelings, there's a number they can call if they don't feel comfortable talking to someone.
And I am sympathetic to people who are struggling with that. I mean, I am. So don't get me wrong on that.
And let me say this: to think that they're not in Grant County would be a big fallacy on our part, because what our counselors deal with every day would blow your mind. That's all I can tell you. It would blow your mind.
But coming from a parent, because it wasn't only this, it had to also do with them being able to go to a counselor or something that the parent doesn't absolutely know about. That would have been as a parent, I would have been like, now listen, I don't know what advice you're giving to them. I'm a Christian. Maybe the counselor's not. Okay. Then let's take Christianity out of it, because people don't care about Christianity much in the broader United States. Here, maybe. I'm a Muslim, and I don't agree with that. Well, this paper that I didn't get, that I didn't sign, my child automatically can see that counselor, and I don't know.
Part of the counseling policy says that when a counselor is counseling a student, under no circumstances can they invoke their religious beliefs on that child, whatever they are, like you said, Muslim.
But the whole thing is, by not invoking the religious beliefs, can be invoking a religious belief. Does that make sense? Because for someone who their faith is in that religion, anything that is secular would be anti-faith to them.
Well,
I know it's a sticky slope, but I'm just...
What our counselors do, and I think they do them throughout the state and throughout the country, if a child comes to them, in every way possible, shape, and form, they involve the parent, 100%. There are times, many times, when I was principal of Petersburg Elementary School, I can tell you it probably happened once a week, when the counselor came to me and said, we've got to call CPS. Child came and there was sexual abuse in the home. We're not going to call home. There was domestic violence.
That I can understand.
There were drugs.
Yes.
There were multiple things that we have to make that decision. And what is the best interest of the child? Is that child in imminent danger? And where do we go from here? And it's a tough call.
With that, I understand that. So let's go to the wackiest situation.
Okay.
Because everyone says don't go to the wackiest situation. They never happen.
Oh, they can happen.
But they happen.
That's right.
So, child A goes into our counselor and says, I sit at home at night and I meow. And I feel like meowing, so I feel like I'm a cat. What is that counselor going to say? Because to me, that needs stopped right then, and the parents need notified.
Well, first of all,
And I know that's a
no, but
that's like the most broad spectrum end of what could happen.
right. And here's what I would say: I'm not a trained counselor. Counselors are trained to ask follow-up questions, to dig deeper, to see what might be the root cause of that, and then would in all cases that they could, and that would certainly be a case where I think they would call the parents and say there are some issues here. You got to remember, counselors can't. They can meet with kids and talk to them, but they can't give what we call actual counseling like you might get at EA Halls or the Potomac Highlands Guild. So we would then talk to the parents about maybe recommending further counseling outside the school system.
So a question on that then, is there, and I'm not questioning any of our counselors, but do they take notes on that?
Oh, absolutely.
Do they, is there a way to know that advice wasn't given out or
They keep a log.
Guidelines, I guess
They keep a log, and it's a very thorough log. And part of their sign out every year when I was principal was the counselor returned their log to me, and we go over that log in specific detail. So yes, they have all those logs.
If parents have any questions or concerns, what can they do? Can they call the counselor?
Absolutely.
Should they call you? What should be their first step?
I think they should call if it's a counseling issue. Call and set up an appointment to talk to that particular counselor about what the issue is. Generally, what it comes down to a large degree is, and I'm a parent. I'm a grandparent. I have a student, a grandchild in kindergarten right now, and I was a product of the public schools. My kids were a product of public schools, and I heard a student say last night that the school was like her second home. And what it comes down to is, in loco parentis, we're the parent. When the parent decides to send their child to school, they're basically giving us the parental rights to do what's in the best interest of those kids.
Ooh, I would disagree with that.
Let me finish, okay? So it comes down to a trust issue. Do you trust us? And we do everything we can to gain that trust. I can't think of anything under my watch, not only my watch, but under previous superintendents when I was either a principal or teacher, where I saw anything other than teachers and aides and bus drivers doing everything they could that was in the best interest of the child. Okay. Now, going back to what you were going to say, obviously you're the parent. I'm the parent. Okay. But if you look it up, loco parentis gives the teacher that authority. So take a look at it, and we'll discuss that one next time.
Okay. I will look that up. Okay. I think we have one more question, and this is the toughest one we chatted a little bit about last night.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to dig as deep as we can without, I know there's some things you can't answer.
Right.
But we were contacted by some concerned parents.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that one of the parents said they are very worried about sending their child to school now. There was an alleged incident involving the football team, hazing incident, that from what we're hearing was not good. What are you allowed to say? What can't you say?
Well, first of all, and again, it goes back to what I said with the trust issue. An isolated situation that occurred in the locker room after football practice, whatever that situation may have been, shouldn't have anything to do with the safety that's provided in our schools on a daily basis, where they're under the watchful eye of their teacher. We have officers in the building. We have administrators roaming hallways. So I don't see the correlation between what happened in that locker room and feeling unsafe in our schools. Our schools are very safe. I'll take that comment to the grave. Now, I think the word that you used was hazing, and
I use that very lightly because it didn't sound like hazing if the reports we're getting are true.
Exactly. And again, here's what I can tell you, just in generic terms, what we do when something like this comes to us. First of all, there has to be a report. I get an email the other day from someone said, "You better not sweep this under the rug." We don't sweep anything under the rug. Just because action wasn't taken the next day doesn't mean that it's been swept under the rug. There's something out there called due process that we have to follow. Because let me tell you something. You rush to judgment and do something too quickly, and you don't follow due process, it doesn't matter what you want to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want. There was the Duke lacrosse team
Absolutely.
ran into that years ago. So I do understand that. Yes.
So let me just on this particular situation, and I can't go into a lot of detail for purpose of confidentiality. Okay. But in this particular situation, I was in training at Clarksburg last week on a Thursday morning, and I get a call from the high school saying that this had been brought to their attention by the football coach. So first of all, everything's been handled right to that point. As soon as the football coach found out about it, he brings it to the attention of the administrators. I'm out of town, so they asked me what to do. So I said, well, Mr. Anderson, who is our secondary ed director, is there. I said, please go get Mr. Anderson. Have Mr. Anderson get on the phone with our attorney, give him all the details, make sure you've interviewed all students, give everybody their due process rights. Then I'll get back with our attorney. He'll make the recommendation how we move forward, and that's what we'll do. That's where we are right now. Okay? Initially, it was thought to be hazing, and hazing is something that's typically defined as an initiation.
Yeah. And listen, so I'll tell my hazing story, because hazing was a lot different than this. Hazing, like I said, hazing my brother. Okay, my brother played football for Petersburg. Sure. His hazing was they had to roll through, I guess there was a mud pit back then. That's what they rolled through. Mine, I was in the band. It wasn't here. It was in Cumberland, Maryland. And they always would get, of course, now you think of it, it would be sexual assault is what they would say. But they got a guy and a girl, and they had to kiss for 5 seconds on the bus. Now that, oh my God, that just saying it, I was like, oh yeah, now heads would roll. So hazing can seem innocent until something happens.
Right. And in this particular case, after it was investigated further, again, talked to our attorney, it was determined it's not hazing. But it would still fall under the same policy, which hazing falls in there also with intimidation and bullying. Okay, and they all bring about the same consequences. So the semantics here really don't matter.
Yeah.
It's still going to be addressed by that same policy that hazing would fall under. And we're in the process of still gathering facts, and keep in mind that all due process will play out, and then ultimately a decision will be made.
Okay. I appreciate you answering what you can, because I know it is a delicate subject. But we were approached and shocked, and I was like, it's something that I had to ask.
Well, yeah, and I'm glad you did ask. And here's what I can say. It's just like every time something like this happens, the facts get distorted so much, and there's so many things out there being said that did not happen. Did something happen? Absolutely. Are we addressing it? Yes, we are. Will there be consequences? Very well could be. But again, we have to let it play out, and then I can promise you we will do what's in the best interest of students' safety, and not only on the football field, but in all of our schools.
And can I just add, I didn't know how this was done, and maybe it won't be done. I guess it would be done in this same situation. I did not know that you had to go into a Board of Education executive session, and then, which is without the public there. And then you talk about what the punishment is. And then you come out and say, student A135, whatever.
Right.
This is the punishment, because that happened last night in the Board of Education meeting.
Yes, it did.
I had never witnessed that before.
You know what? And I mean this sincerely. You talk about getting an education when you become a board member. God bless them.
You go in not knowing some stuff.
I have, and I'll tell this story very quickly. My dad did a lot of things in his lifetime, from negotiating contracts. With GTE, he was also a division manager. He ran his own business, and I can go on down the list. But he told me the hardest thing he ever did was serve 4 years on the Hardy County Board of Education, and minimal pay, unbelievable public scrutiny at times, and they're just trying to do the right thing for kids. Every one of them. I was given this job by 5 outstanding board members. 2 of them are no longer with us, Carla Capozzi and Janie Burke, who I love dearly. The 3 that remained are fantastic, and the 2 that we brought on, I think, are doing an exceptional job. And I just think that sometimes they get bashed, along with me, when there's so much misinformation out there, and don't really know what they do. They go into executive session with me, and we talk about everything. Then we can talk about it all, and then they have to make that tough decision. We come back out, and as you saw last night, we assign a number, not a name, because
they're underage.
They're underage. So that's again, that's policy. That's the way it's handled, and I don't ever want to deviate from that.
Yeah. So it was interesting. So I encourage anyone to just come out to a board meeting, even to see how it was done.
Right.
Just to see. So that was interesting last
night.
Well,
yeah, and another thing too, and I'm glad you brought that up. People have a misconception that the board meetings are public meetings, and they are not public meetings.
They're a meeting done in public.
Right, for the public to hear.
Yeah.
It's kind of like watching TV, watching a program on TV. You're there to watch it. But that's why when people sometimes speak in delegations, they wonder, why didn't they respond? We can't. I'll try to make a comment to let the person know we heard you, and we'll look into it. But it was a little atypical last night because we did have a little back and forth with the Green Power guy, which I thought was...
Yeah, it was the guy with the bus.
Yes.
Yeah, the electric bus. Yeah, it was good asking him questions. And the board asked a lot of questions. So they were doing their due diligence and figuring out, hey,
absolutely.
If this thing turns out to be great, do we buy it? Because they're going to have to make a decision down the line, obviously. If this turns out to be the, invention of the wheel, well, hey, then you do it.
Right.
So I'm actually anxious to see what the buses are like.
I'll get you a ride.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you for coming on and answering my questions, even the tough ones.
Hey, listen, I'm not going to dodge anything, and I will be completely upfront and honest with you in everything that you ask me.
We appreciate it.
And I just really want to try through these podcasts, and I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to take care of the misinformation that's out there and try to make sure that the public knows that if you send your kids to our school, you can trust us. We'll keep them safe. We'll do everything we can to educate them fully and just continue to try to move forward in that direction.
And that's what we're trying to do with this. Keep people informed, let them know what's going on, and hopefully answering some questions in the process and concerns and things.
JR, we'll do this again in November.
Sounds great.
You've already got some notes there for your next one. So
yeah.
We'll address that.
I have to get that line from you again and write it down.
Okay, I'll give it to you.
Okay. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. Of course, this will be on our Facebook page, Explore Grand County, YouTube, Explore, and Rumble Explore. So check us out. Have a great day.
Thank you.